What do you have to say? You heard him, folks. You want the belly rubs? All right. Today, guys, we'll be me and Otto will be talking to you guys about some of the two major battles of the American Revolutionary War. Those two battles being the Lexington and Concord battle and the siege on Yorktown. So, yeah, let's get right into it.
All right, so the first war we're going to be talking about today is the American Revolution. And within that war, there were many small fights and battles, the main one being the Battle of Lexington and Concord. The Battle of Lexington and Concord was a significant event that marked the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. It took place on April 19th, 1775, in the towns of Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts. Today, I'm going to be giving you a small summary of that battle. It started with tensions between the American colonists and the British government. They had been escalating due to grievances including increasing in taxation and limited self-governance. In the early 1775, the British authorities received intelligence that colonial militias were storing military supplies, including weapons and ammunition, in Concord. On the evening of April 18th, a force of British soldiers under the command of Lieutenant Colonial Francis Smith embarked on a secret mission to seize and destroy the colonial munitions. However, the Patriot Network, particularly Paul Revere and William Dawes, rode ahead to warn the local militias and communities of the British movement. As the British troops advanced towards the Concord in early morning of April 19th, they encountered a group of colonial militiamen, known as the Minutemen. Gathered on the Lexington Green, the British commander ordered the militiamen to disperse, but it remains unclear who fired the first shot. A brief exchange of musket fire ensued, and several Americans were killed or wounded. The clash became known as the Battle of Lexington and Concord. After the skirmish in Lexington, the British continued their march to Concord. However, by this time, the Concord militias had assembled and were prepared to defend their supplies. As the British troops approached Concord, they faced growing resistance from the Patriots, who engaged them in guerrilla-style tactics, attacking them from behind trees, stone walls, and other strategic positions. The British forces faced increasing difficulties and were eventually realized that they were outnumbered and at risk of being trapped. They made the decision to withdraw to Boston, but as they retreated, they faced relentless harassment from the colonial militias along the entire route. The American Revolution had officially begun. The Battle of Lexington and Concord demonstrated a colonialist willingness to fight for their right and set stage for a subsequent war for independence. It also led to the convening of the Second Continental Congress, which eventually declared independence from Britain and formed the basis of the United States of America.
The second battle we will be talking about is the siege on Yorktown, which marked, obviously, the last fight of the American Revolution. The siege of Yorktown was a decisive battle of the American Revolution that took place from September 28th to October 19th on 1781 in Yorktown, Virginia. Here's a summary of the siege. By 1781, the war had been raging for 6 years, and the British Army, under the command of General Charles Cornwallis, I think I said that right, held several key positions in the southern colonies. However, the tide was turning in favor of the American colonists. With the assistance of the French forces led by General Jean-Baptiste de Rochambeau, a plan was devised to trap Cornwallis and his troops. In August 1781, the combined American and French forces led by General George Washington began marching south from New York towards Virginia. Meanwhile, a French fleet commanded by Admiral Francois Joseph Paul de Grasse arrived in the Chesapeake Bay, effectively cutting off Cornwallis' escape by sea. Now the American and French forces converged on Yorktown, where Cornwallis had entrenched his troops. The siege began on September 28th. With the Allies bombarding the British defenses and establishing their own line. The Allies slowly closed in on Cornwallis, constructing trenches, fortifications, and artillery entrapments to bring relentless pressure on the British. The siege was characterized by constant artillery fire, skirmishes, and attempts by the British to break out of the encirclement. However, the Allies maintained a tight blockade, preventing Cornwallis from receiving reinforcements or supplies. As weeks passed, the British defense became weakened, and morale began to decline. On October 17th, realizing that further resistance was futile, Cornwallis requested a ceasefire and began negotiating surrender terms. 2 days later, on October 19th, 1781, the British forces formally surrendered. Over 7,000 sailors and civilians became prisoners of war. The surrender of Yorktown proved to be a turning point in the Revolutionary War. It demonstrated the effectiveness of the American-French alliance and dealt a significant blow to British morale. The victory at Yorktown ultimately led to negotiations for peace, and in 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed, recognizing the independence of the American United States and ending the war.